Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel Coding at Home. I'm Matthew Lonsdale and we're programming games in the Unreal Engine. Okay, so it's technically part 4 of the AI boards movement on the series, but what I'm going to do is just do a quick run through and make this in a so kind of for the advanced sort of users, and I'm just going to show you the script. If you want to know how to build this step by step, look back for the part 1 and follow it from the start, and that shows you how to make the boat, the way everything's working and moving around, how the pathfinding's done, and the buoyancy of the boat, and the islands, which is just a cube and stuff like that, and what's involved. All right, but I'll just show you like the final product. Click play. What we've got set up. Full screen. So we've got static meshes, which is the boat which I just made out of geometry, moving towards target points. Once it gets to that target point, it'll spawn a new target point and then move to that. Now you can turn the boat collision on and off so they won't crash into each other, and you can show the waypoints. So obviously this boat here is waypoint there, then there. The pink one, that's waypoint, and so on. And then obviously you can adjust the speed here as well. We can make them go a lot faster, go really fast. You probably will get a couple of errors when they're moving this fast, just because they're crashing and overlapping stuff they shouldn't be. But you can get them to do some really crazy things if you enable the collision. And see where he's... it's quite fun. He's on fire now because he's crashed and broke down. They've crashed and broke. So that's just a little emitter. It's actually quite fun to watch. But I'll run through quickly. See, yeah, it's when you put them too fast, it kind of loses the waypoint. But when you run at a reasonable speed, everything works fine. So what we've got for the land is the ocean plugin on a landscape, and then the way I've got rid of the main island is it's actually just over here at the side. I've just deleted one of the spline points and set I think I just set a couple of settings in here, and it's just out the way. I think channel offset's 8,000 and a few things in there. Can't remember what I did. But we've got nav mesh. Let's see. So that's just a normal nav mesh. Okay. We'll go P, and then I'll hide the water. So you can see it's a normal nav mesh on the landscape. Not higher than the islands, obviously. The top of the island, just to stop spawning and pathing on top and over. What I have done is I've went and got the raycast. I've changed it to, well, it says 35 there, but if you go into your settings, change that in the navigation mesh, change that to 1,000, and then if it's still if it hasn't updated, you can build the path. So come to your raycast and type 1,000, and then it'll adjust itself to give more space around the island so the boats weren't crashing. Anything else in here? No. The AI boat, we've basically got event begin play. This is just some optional stuff where you can turn the collision on and off. It's got a delay because you need the boat. You can't spawn the boat in the water. It has to be so many units above for the buoyancy to like kick in, and then when it lands in water, it then becomes buoyant. What I've got here is a line trace, which is just doing a line trace from the boat down to the landscape, hitting the landscape, and at that point it's spawning what I've called an AI Pathfinder, which is essentially just a character component, just an empty class, and that's all that is. And I use that to pathfind to the target ball, which also does a line trace here hits the landscape and spawns one as well. So what's happening essentially is the two characters that are on the landscape are pathfinding like a normal walking AI would, and then I'm just taking that path and setting it to 0, 0 on the z-axis, which is like the water level. So, and go back to boat. So that happens, and then obviously I spawn the target, which is here, which also does the line trace. That's the target ball, so that spawns. I promote that to a variable. This is more checks to see if stuff's valid here. This is this is what you would do if this is like, if there's no valid path, destroy them, clear them, and redraw the path. This is just sort of checks for errors. But what we're doing is we're basically, if this was your first, if it was the first target, you just want to do, is there already a path? If not, draw the path. The path is get the current target, which is the target ball was spawned reference. This is the reference to the target spawned character. We're just checking to see if everything's valid. And then from the character component from the boat, which is spawned, get that actor's location, get the current target's character capsule, and from there to there, draw the path or get the path points and generate a path on the nav mesh. Once we've got that, if we've got a valid path, then we'll get the points of that for each loop. We'll not use the 0 because that's where you already are, so it's from index 1. You would then spawn the waypoints, and then that's obviously if you want to see them or not. So you would spawn them, add them to an array of waypoints, and then tell the actor to move to, which is a custom event, another check to see if it's valid, and then get the first index, get the actor location, get your location. This is basically rotate to that direction. Another check again, and then if it's so if this is basically going to run over and over and over again until something happens here. So are we at the first waypoint, yes or no? If we are, clear it, and then redo it. So it's slightly dynamic. So as it gets to the first waypoint, it'll clear it and then redo another one from that point, rather than moving to that static first path that it initially got. So it'll generate a new way path every time. If we're not at that point yet, this is basically setting the speed, because it's not moving along a nav mesh, you're floating. So what I've done is you're adding like a thrust, or we're adding the force with physics to push the boat, and then it'll push it a little bit, and then obviously as that runs round and round, it's pushing it and pushing it and pushing it. And this is just getting the vector length, which is how fast that's moving, and then it's basically saying, are we at the speed? If we're up to top speed, stay at top speed. If we're less than top speed, add more force. So that's kind of how the acceleration works, and that's why that would be ticked there. And then we'll delay, and then we'll call move to again. This is just more checks to see, have we lost the route? If we've lost the target, create another path to it. And if we cannot find the target at all, then don't move, set on fire, because something's gone wrong. Draw path, did I run through that? Yes. All I've got here on overlap is, sorry, just on overlap, we'll just check to see if boats are colliding. So that's checked if they are set type of collision. If we overlap the target ball, we'll just destroy everything, tidy up everything, set movement to none because we're at the point. You don't have to set the movement back to none. You keep it moving, but if there isn't a new target, it'll just then slowly come to a stop. So that's preferable. And then it's basically destroying everything and then spawning a new target, which takes you back to the start. And then it just runs and runs and runs like that. You can obviously dynamically spawn a target. You know, you could, to put this into a game, you can say, right, players over here, get a random location in here, call the boat, and tell it to start moving to that point. Do you know what I mean? You could do anything with it, really. See what we've got on the island. So on the island, that's just basically a big cube. You can obviously change this to whatever. I've got a nav modifier because what was happening was the nav mesh was getting generated inside of the cube. So if you add a nav modifier and set that area to null, then it'll not draw nav inside of that cube. Project settings. In project settings and collision, I've added a couple of object types. Landscape, obviously, so when the line trace, it looks only for a landscape, so it doesn't hit the water mesh or the actors or anything else gets in the way. And then obviously the boats overlapping, boats blocked. So I've made the boats their own object type, so it'll overlap certain things. The target ball, when this spawns, what I'm doing is I'm spawning that on a random location on the nav mesh, and then I'm setting it to the water level, which is just getting the current X and the current Y values, and then set them to what they are, X and Y, but set the Z location to 0, which is the water level. Line trace, find the landscape, spawn the AI. I was doing some extra stuff there, obviously that's not needed anymore. And then promote that to a variable. Pile save. Waypoint, which is just the same, set that to 0, and then the boat will move to them. But pretty much it's not overly complicated. The way to get, I know there's a lot of people having problems with the buoyancy and why it's not working and everything syncs, so I'll quickly tell you what's going on, right? Because I've seen people having to use the example one and then change the mesh. So if you want to make something buoyant, these are the rules. So if you can create a class actor, right? I'm not naming anything, this is just brief. You want to make a static mesh component, right? And then this can be a cube. Okay. And then you would add the buoyancy. And we'll just add one, add 0, 0, 0, right? This isn't going to float. Even if you bring it up, it's tiny as well. Probably 20 or something. It was quite small, wasn't it? Watch, it'll be absolutely way too big now. Well, yeah, doesn't matter. Right, but it's not... Sorry. Let's go to simulate, just so I don't open that, and I haven't activated... Someone's trying to get hold of us here. Blueprint, static mesh, simulate the physics. Okay, I'm just going to leave everything as default. What's going to happen is it's going to sync. And there's two reasons why that's syncing and that's not floating. Okay. Where is it? There. So the static mesh, the buoyancy only works if it's on the default scene route. So the first thing you need to do is make your static mesh your default scene route. And that'll actually swap the order of them round if you haven't already added stuff. So what we'll do is we'll make it a little bit smaller, just so it's not hitting the bed of the thing. And the other thing is weight. So I've got one pontoon, and it's at a radius of 100 with, I'll take that as well, Buoyancy coefficient is 0.1. Okay, so I haven't worked it out yet. I'm trying to, but there's a maths equation which is the radius size of the pontoon times something to do with the coefficient, and then times by the mass, or divided, or that square root of this shit, or whatever the fuck it is. There's obviously an equation that takes into consideration the weight and the size of the pontoon, so this will still sink. Okay, and the reason why that's sinking is because it's too heavy for one pontoon with a radius of 100 units. Okay, so if you went back to your blueprint, got your static mesh, override the mass in kilos and set it to 50, with one pontoon, it should just about float. There. That's why they're not floating. Now, if you was to say, make it 200 kilos, okay, one pontoon, is it enough? See, one pontoon is rising, but it's not quite enough to stop it from dropping all the way down. So that's why when you're adding static meshes, things are sinking. So if you now wanted to, you could now make that into any static mesh. Just keep your weight at 50 and add however many pontoons you need. So say you've got a boat, but like say I've put a mast and a sail on mine. From here you can add whatever you want and it'll just add it to the static mesh. Just remember, override the weight of it and just type 0 and it'll put it to 0.001, which is like the minimum. But for now, that was it really. It was just a case of trying to explain a little bit more about the buoyancy, why people have had problems, and some little fun thing you can do with it. But okay, that was all. So if you enjoyed the video, leave us a like. If you want to watch how we build this, then I'll put a link in the description for part 1, and then you can follow that. I think it's a half-an-hour video, then there's like a longer video, and it's in stages. So it's like the first video, see how we get the project open, the ocean brought in, making stuff float, and make the boat out of geometry. So we've got one, because not everyone had a static mesh of a boat. So that's it. I don't think I do any pathfinding in the first episode, so that's a pretty straightforward episode of the basics. And then in part 2, I show how we get the pathfinding and spawning of the characters. That's a bit of a longer one. And then part 3 is like where we tidy up and it's fix errors and if stuff's crashing and collision of this and the waypoints and stuff like that. But if you want this final project where I've added like random flag colors and the dynamic pathfinding and stuff like that, I'll put this project on my Patreon, so you can jump over there and you can grab it over there. All right. Well, thank you for watching, and have a good day. Thank you.